Hello and welcome to another solo episode of Raw Chatter, your podcast that is everything to do with the stuff that people don't talk about enough. I am going to get a little bit down and deep and raw today about making space for what you truly want in 2025. Yes, I know there's podcasts galore everywhere at the moment. I have been tuning into many, all about how to make change, and a lot of them are coming up with the same sort of information and the same kind of suggestions, which is fantastic because it means that there is some consistency in what people are hearing. Hooray, rather than there being a lot of conflict and confusion. Pretty much people are saying the same stuff because it's based upon how we humans function. But what I'm wanting to do today is to look at a little bit more the side of change that perhaps isn't talked about so much. And that's why we are so resistant to it. Because this is the time of year when people are talking about New Year's resolutions and doing something different. If we don't make any changes, then the new year isn't going to be a new year. It's just going to be yet another year of more of the same. And for many people, that actually is the story of their life up until this point. They have had many years which are exactly the same. And if you do want that to change, then obviously there has to be some changes. Now, I have got a document for you to download if you would like it on reflections for 2025. And part of that document invites you to look back on your camera reel, on the photos that you've taken month by month, to just see what were your highlights, to help to jog your memory of just what you have gone through this year. What are the things that you've enjoyed? What are the things that were hard? What have you learned about yourself? All of the questions are on that document if you want to go through that process. And part of it is very kind of standard. What do you want to stop doing? What do you want to start doing? And what do you want to continue doing? And this is where I want to look at things in a slightly different way, because we can spend time doing this work. And I genuinely hope that you do actually put aside half a day, either a morning or an afternoon or an evening, to actually spend enough time to do this stuff thoroughly, because I think you'll be surprised about what you're going to learn about yourself, but also about what choices and changes you genuinely want to make, as opposed to what choices and changes do you think you ought to make or should make because society says, or you think your partner wants it, or it will give you better, in inverted commas, status. And really I think it will get you thinking. And that's the point of it. Because a lot of us don't actually really think through change. And that is why we find it hard. So I want to kind of delve a little bit deeper into what makes us so resistant to change. Now, there is, again, it's quite a cliched saying, but it is one that I think will resonate with many people. Being comfortable right now in today's world is killing us. And it absolutely is. However, I'm going to change that slightly, because a lot of what people do and repeat on autopilot is the stuff that they've been doing for years. It's not necessarily comfortable, but what it is familiar and it's known. And what those of you who've heard me talk on this podcast before will understand about the brain, and very much into helping you to recognize that our brain and our body work as one. They aren't separate, they never were. So we need to stop talking about them as if they are. But what becomes automatic behavior is usually based upon our thoughts, our beliefs, our values, and also the sensations that we feel within our body. And it's a catch-22. Right? There are some times where feelings are more powerful, and then we get a feeling which is followed by a thought, which then leads to a certain behavior pattern. Or we get a thought which then tends to elicit a feeling, which then tends to create the same behavior. Now, it's mix and match. It's not either or, it's and. And a lot of us are more tuned into our feelings, and we don't necessarily have words for the sensations that we sometimes feel in our body. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. What I do know is anybody who has battled, and I'm going to use that word battle because not because it's my favorite word, but it's a word that people tend to use about addiction because they think of it as a fight, and that's part of the reason why we resist change and find it so hard, because we look upon it as a fight. But if you've had issues around addictive patterns of behavior that have been harming your health and causing problems with your relationships and with your family and with work, you'll know that some of the behavior patterns that you have been doing to maintain that addiction were far from comfortable, right? But you kept on doing them anyway because there was an element of safety about them. And our brain wants us to feel safe. It wants us to feel secure. It loves the known for the simple reason that our brain is designed to stop us from dying. And therefore, it's designed to be ready and alert for any kind of threat. And anything that makes us feel uncomfortable or anything that is unfamiliar is a threat. It's unknown, it's unfamiliar. Therefore, our brain is going to view it as a threat. And it's going to do everything to get away from that threat as quickly as possible. So if that means that you are deciding to do a behavior that feels uncomfortable and is definitely unfamiliar, there is going to be a sense of anxiety, a sense of fear, a sense of, I don't want to be doing this, I might die. Right now, in today's world, that is very unlikely to happen, but your brain doesn't know that. Okay, because the part of the brain, which is the oldest part of the brain and the fastest part of the brain, kicks in before the youngest part of the brain, the part of the brain that allows us to make rational decisions, has even got a look in because it's much, much slower. And so this is why we find ourselves doing the same stuff, even though we don't like it. And if you've been around people who you may think, I just don't understand them. They keep on moaning about how unhappy they are and how they want to change things and what they really want and what they really hope for and what they really wish for. But they don't do anything different. They don't do anything to change things. And that's the reason. Because the behavior patterns that they have created and have therefore become automatic are familiar and are known. Whether we're talking about worry, yes, it's addictive, it's familiar, it's known, right? People go to worry as their go-to, right? Because if they had different emotions going on, that's a bit scary, right? Something may be happening or there may be a threat, I might die. So people become addicted to perfectionism, to procrastination, to people pleasing, to restricting food because that's not comfortable, but it's familiar. Okay, you know what you're getting, therefore you don't need to be scared of it. When people over exercise, that discomfort that they feel, right, or just the general malaise of feeling tired all the time and exhausted, but pushing them to do it because they have a rule that they have to work out every day, it's familiar. It's not comfortable by any stretch of the imagination. So I understand the phrase, being comfortable is killing us. In a certain sense, it is, because we are, in general, utilizing time-saving devices and things that stop us from doing what we ideally want to be doing to have a healthy mind and body that's moving more. And we have brought these things into our lives. And don't get me wrong, I love technology, it's great. But when we are using things like electronic scooters instead of powering a scooter with our own feet, when we are using things like electric bicycles instead of riding a bike and pedaling it with human leg power, then we have to question, is it actually helping us really in the long term? The foods that we have that are available, literally, we can just hit a button on our phone or on our computer screen and we can order our shopping that can almost be delivered within an hour to our door. We can have meals that are already cooked and prepared and we just literally have to open the packaging and eat it. So all of these convenience things that make our lives faster and potentially more comfortable, yes, I agree. Those are the things that are actually killing us slowly, for sure. because it means that we're not doing what we're designed to do as humans. We are not putting in effort. And effort is important because effort is the thing that starts to give us a sense of worth, a sense of value, but also, crucially, it helps us to have the dopamine, serotonin, and the GABA and the acetylcholine and all of the endorphins that our brain and our body require to keep us motivated, to keep on doing stuff. In other words, to stay alive. So it's really important that we don't stay comfortable for too long. But as I said, there's a confusion between being comfortable and what is familiar. And that is why I'm not against gadgets and stuff. They have their place. But if we become over reliant on them to the extent where we're hardly moving, we are sitting the majority of the time behind a screen, or we are, even when we are moving, we're not really moving very, very much because whatever vehicle we're choosing to use is electronic as opposed to being powered by us, then you can see that over time, we are definitely going to get heavier. We're definitely going to find that our brain doesn't work quite as well, quite as quickly as it could do, because there are fewer decisions to be made. And we're not having to use our sense of working stuff out. We're not having to get a little bit creative. Everything is presented to us. Literally, here you go. Which is okay for a short period of time, but it gets boring, doesn't it? Right? If you have been living on takeaway food and you have not perhaps prepared a meal for a while, and then say you go to a cooking class, for example, with a friend, chances are you really enjoy it because it's new, it's novel, it's different, and you'd forgotten just what the joy is in peeling vegetables, chopping them up, creating something from scratch, from single ingredients, and then suddenly having this finished product over here. There is a sense of achievement and satisfaction where you can actually see the thing in its raw material to the thing that you're then going to eat, and hopefully it tastes good. So you get that fantastic boost of feel good neurotransmitters and a sense of joy and happiness that you can't help but smile. And smiling is massively important. Now, how many of us find ourselves smiling when we're opening our takeaway container? But probably not really, because chances are you know what's in there, you've had it before, it's not particularly exciting, but is it comfortable? Is it easy? Yes, it is. And so what I really kind of want to help us to recognize is that change is hard because it's unfamiliar, right? Therefore, it feels different. And I'm using these words on purpose because when something feels different, we're then not quite sure what we're going to do with it. We don't quite know what the outcome's going to be. We don't quite know how we are going to feel when we've done this thing that already feels unfamiliar. And this is the part that I'm going to invite you to try to make space for. Because if you can start to create just little points during your day where you intentionally do something that makes you feel a little bit uncertain, a little bit anxious, that is a bit unfamiliar, that is unknown, you're going to start to be able to recognize that the thoughts about this thing are the thing that's stopping you from moving forward and taking action. Because if you actually follow through with action, what you're going to discover is 9 times out of 10, it's quite fun. You actually enjoy it and you potentially want to do it again. And what a lot of people say to me is that when I invite them, and it is an invitation, I don't tell my clients what to do. I will make suggestions and I will make invitations that they have a go, because I know, and you know, unless you actually have a go at something, you will never truly know how it feels or what the outcome is going to be. You can't. Okay. Yes, you can look at somebody else who has done that very same thing, but they aren't you. And therefore, their outcome is not necessarily going to be what yours will be. The feelings and the emotions that were initiated even in their body and in their mind can't be the same as yours, because they are not you. They don't have your experience in life. They don't have your upbringing. They don't have your knowledge and understanding of certain things. So every single human who does a similar activity or the very same exact activity, the experience can never be exactly the same. It's just impossible. The outcomes might be similar, but even they won't be exactly the same. And this is why, when you can set yourself the intention of doing something that is unfamiliar, that is unknown, and you can allow yourself to simply recognize the feelings and the thoughts are just because this is unfamiliar and unknown. No other reason. You're not going to die. It's not frightening. It's not scary unless you decide to tell yourself that it is. Because the other thing that we've got to recognize is that there is a story that goes along with our thoughts. And the story that goes along with our thoughts is often the thing that keeps us stuck. And it's usually not true. We are creatures of habit. We are humans, right? We like habit. We like routine. We like things to be done in a certain way because it goes back to we feel safe. So you know that. But our thoughts become habituated. And if our thoughts are not true, and if our thoughts are based upon other people's beliefs and they're not our own, they're probably not even in alignment with who we are as people. But we feel that we need to keep on thinking these same old thoughts because what? Because society says, because we'll be judged if we don't, because my partner this or my friend that, whatever. But that in itself is a story. If you give yourself space to actually get curious about what you genuinely believe, what you actually feel when you're doing something, not what you think you should feel or what you're going to feel because your head said, but actually what do I feel right now in this moment? When you get fully present with that, what you're going to find is that it's not what you anticipated most of the time, and it's not the outcome that you expected. Because pretty much everything that we do at one point was unfamiliar. And this is the bit that we seem to forget. Okay, we get so used to doing the same things that we forget that at one point they were unknown, they were not familiar. But we kept on doing them, right? Until they became so well known and so familiar that now we do them without even thinking about them. They have become automated. And that means that you have got massive capacity to automate other behavior patterns that will serve you, in just the same way that you have automated behavior and thought patterns that don't serve you, in terms of health, in terms of finances, in terms of business, in terms of relationships, right? And the same process is how you do it. It's no different. The very habits that you have right now at some point were new. And therefore, every single habit that you have, you can, should you choose to, change it. Right? And you will change it in exactly the same way you created the habits you've got now, through repetition. Through consistently doing the same different, unfamiliar habit over and over again, you will make it known, familiar, and eventually automatic. And this is why when people tell me, oh, change is scary, change is hard, well, you've created these habits that you've got right now that you're not happy about, that is making your life miserable and potentially hard. And yet you're telling me you don't want to do something that can make things better, because it might be a little bit difficult and it might feel uncomfortable or familiar. Look at the power of those words. Uncomfortable and familiar sound a lot less manageable. Sound a lot more manageable, don't they? Than, oh, it's going to be really, really hard and I'm going to struggle and I'm going to suffer. But those are the words that people use, which tells me very, very clearly that they are scared of the unknown and they are scared of the unfamiliar, because they are so stuck in familiar, in safety. And it makes sense. If our life was under threat when we make changes, right, it would make complete sense that we don't want to do it. But there's very few changes that people tell me they want to make that are going to threaten their life, right? Being able to eat like a normal person isn't going to threaten their life. In fact, it's going to enhance their life and allow them to be able to do a lot of the things that they can't do at the moment. Not taking drugs, not drinking alcohol to excess isn't going to kill them. It's potentially going to help them to live healthier for longer. And yet they are resisting it because it may feel initially unfamiliar and uncomfortable. Which makes me circle back to go through the reflections, download the sheet and look at the question that says, what have I learned about myself this year, as in 2024? Because if you can be honest about what you've learned about yourself, you may discover that you like routine, that you love everything to stay the same. And if that is what you've discovered, then there's your answer as to why you are resisting change, even though you say you want it. Because I have absolutely no doubt when I speak to people and when I have an initial conversation with them about evaluating where they are with their health, with their life, with their finances, relationships, business, and where they want to be, I've absolutely no doubt at all with the part of where they want to be, where they genuinely do want that for themselves. I don't doubt it for 1 second. But often they don't believe that they can get it or they can have it because they believe it's going to be too hard. It's going to take too long, is often what I hear, or I won't be able to do it, I will fail. Now, both of those things can become self-fulfilling prophecies if that is the story you keep repeating to yourself. It will take a long time if you decide it's going to take a long time. It will be hard if you decide it's going to be hard, because that is how our brain works. It gets programmed on what we say and what we think. Our thoughts are our brain's programming. So if I think I'm not good enough, well, I'm probably going to be right. Right? And there's that famous quote, isn't there? Whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you are correct. Right? Because whatever we think about ourselves, we're going to make sure that that happens. Now, this goes right across the board. Whether I'm talking about what we are capable of in terms of creating a business, or what we are capable of in terms of finances, or what we're capable in terms of having the relationship that we would like, or the family environment that we would like. If we tell ourselves it's not possible and follow it with multiple reasons, stories that you've kept telling yourself, then that is going to be what your outcome is going to be. So well done, right? You know the outcome, you've told yourself the story. So be happy with that, because you will be safe, it will be familiar, and it is known. However, if you're telling yourself you're wishing and you're wanting something else, then there's only you that can create that something else. And we do that by deciding. And I'm choosing these words on purpose because words are powerful. They are instructions to our brain. We do it by deciding that we're going to get more comfortable with the unfamiliar and the unknown. And you do that by looking at it slightly differently. And my suggestion is that you look at it through the lens of an experiment. Okay, because if we can come at it from a mindset of let's get curious, let me just see how much unfamiliarity I can handle. Let me just see how long I can hold on to this feeling of insecurity before it dissipates because I've stopped focusing on it. Let me just try this out as an experiment. And I'm going to set myself a task to do something where I am intentionally in a situation where I'm going to feel uncomfortable, unfamiliar, uncertain. The outcome's going to be unknown. Pick any one of them, right? And it doesn't have to be for a long time, right? Don't go crazy and put yourself in a situation where you're going to be there for like half a day. I'm talking about start baby steps. Start with, if it's food and it's eating that we're talking about, start with one meal. If your story, for example, is I cannot eat 3 meals a day because once I start eating, I won't be able to stop, then you are going to decide to get curious and let yourself, again, choosing the words, let yourself feel that unfamiliar sensation of eating a meal earlier in the day and stopping, no matter what. You don't eat any more than the food that you decided you were going to have at that meal. And you don't eat again until the next one. Now, that is going to create a sense of uncertainty, unfamiliarity. Potentially, you may decide you're going to call it fear. You're going to call it unbearable. You're going to call it whatever it is you choose to call it. But whatever you choose, that's going to be what you get. So if you decide, actually, it's going to be fun. Actually, it's going to allow you to just see what you are able to do. It's going to help you to create some clear patterns of eating so that your body can get back into regulating its blood sugar levels, that it can get back into regulating its hunger and its full up hormone signals. If you look at it from that point of view, now it should feel different. If it's drinking and you have decided that you got into a habit and you know it's a habit, it's nothing more than that, of you drinking every single night because there's a story attached to it that you need it to wind down and to get to sleep, you're going to say, okay, I am going to get curious and try just one night this week where I don't do that. And it's going to feel unfamiliar. Now, choose your words. If you decide to call it hard, you're probably not going to stick with it, and you're going to kind of reinforce the idea that's already running in your head that change is hard. But if you decide to get curious and just see, how am I going to feel tomorrow morning, instead of focusing on the unfamiliar sensation of you having an evening of not drinking, but fast forward in your head how good I'm going to feel tomorrow morning when I haven't had that alcohol in my system and I don't wake up feeling not fully rested and kind of groggy, then that is going to help you to recognize that this temporary state, because that's all it is, this temporary state of feeling something feels unfamiliar and therefore unknown, is okay. You will not die. And this is the phrase that allowed me to keep on going. When I had to overcome my eating issues and decide that I was going to not throw up every single thing that I put inside my body, and I had to leave the food in there and resist that impulse, that powerful urge to throw up, it was unfamiliar, right? But I had a powerful reason why. I didn't want to spend the rest of my life being sneaky. I didn't want to spend the rest of my life working out where I could get rid of the food as soon as I'd eaten it. I didn't want to spend the rest of my life being a liar, saying that I'd eaten when I hadn't eaten, or pretending that I hadn't thrown up when actually I had. I didn't want to be that person. It wasn't who I was. It was a behavior pattern that I thought I was in control of to start with, to manage my weight, but then it basically took control over my life and over me. And I didn't want to be that anymore. Now, little did I know that I didn't have the tools that I had now, that I helped myself to handle those feelings by latching on to something else. That is not what I suggest you do. But what I'm saying to you is initially I didn't. And I managed, as you can, to stick with that feeling of unfamiliarity, unknown. Yes, it wasn't comfortable. I knew it wasn't going to be. There was no surprise there, right? But if I focused on how horrible it felt, it was 100 times worse. If I allowed myself to just do something else and I made plans to ensure that I was not in a space where I was going to keep on thinking about how I felt, I was going to take my focus to other people and to do things and to care about other people and stop tuning in to how unfamiliar the feeling was for me to keep this food inside, then it didn't last so long because I wasn't consciously fixated on it. And this is the thing. So many people tell me that change is hard because they tried this and they tried that. But if you are focusing on the unfamiliarity and how uncomfortable it feels and how hard it is, you are going to give up, right? That is what humans do. That is what our brains decided to do. Why? Because it's so uncomfortable and the feelings are so powerful that your brain thinks you are going to die. It thinks you're under threat. Right? Because you're starting to create a massive stress response physiologically in your body. Whereas if you decide in advance, okay, I'm making space to have this feeling, I'm going to set myself up so that I'm calm even before I do it. Right? And it may be that you do some breath work for 2 or 3 minutes, 5 counts in through your nose, 5 counts out through your mouth, just to get a consistent, continuous, even breath pattern going. And you are fully conscious that you know this is going to be unfamiliar and it's unknown, but you're going to do it anyway, no matter what. You're going to stick through it. You're going to stick with it. I can tell you categorically, you are going to feel differently when you have repeated it 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 times. Are you going to feel amazing after the first time? No, of course not. You're not. But you can choose how you look at it. The biggest thing that you are going to have to do is actually do it. And that is the part that people don't want to do, right? And so when people tell me that it's going to be hard, I know full well that they've not even given themselves the opportunity to try it, because they have believed the thoughts that they're thinking in their head about how hard it's going to be without actually finding out for themselves. Or they have tried it once and it felt so overwhelming they don't want to do it again. And that's because they didn't have a process to follow. They didn't get themselves into a state of calm. They weren't intentional about what they were doing and why they were doing it. Because once you know what you're going to do intentionally, that's going to be unfamiliar and uncomfortable, and you know crucially why do you want to do it? What is the bigger picture, right? Is it because you actually do want to create a new year, not the same year on repeat? Then you've already got a powerful why. When you go deeper into that powerful why, what will it give me if I can do this, if I can get curious, if I can allow myself the space to do this work on a daily basis? In 100 days, I can tell you now, you're going to feel very, very different, and you're going to feel very different about change, because you'll start to do what I do with change and embrace it, because it's an opportunity to look at what is possible. And when you make space, instead of doing the stuff you've always done and telling yourself you're too busy, you haven't got time, stop with the busyness. Look at the stuff that you're actually being busy doing and just say, how is this helping me to create a different future? If the answer is not at all, then stop. Make the space to do something that is unfamiliar, that is going to leave you with a sense of uncertainty and a little bit of fear, but also excitement, because the body creates the same chemical response whether we're scared or whether we're excited. And allow yourself to get curious by discovering just what you are able to do. Because here's one thing that I do know after 33 years of being in the world of wellness, starting off in the fitness side of things, every single human being that I have come across, myself included, is capable of much more than we believe that we are. The majority never ever give themselves the opportunity to find out. And if you do want to create health and wealth, and I mean wealth in all areas, in relationships, in business, in finance, in well-being, if you want to be wealthy in terms of experience of life and people that you connect to, that's what I believe wealth is. It's everything about this experience that we call life. If you want to make the most of your life, because I do believe we only have one and this is not a rehearsal, then embrace change, embrace curiosity, set aside the time to stop doing the busy stuff that's keeping you stuck exactly where you are, on repeat, living a life you're not enjoying, and be intentional about creating the space to experience unfamiliarity, uncertainty, and realize it won't kill you, but it can set you free. If you have liked what you've heard today, please do hit the subscribe button, folks. I am available for you to contact me on social media. All of the links are below. If you do want to have a chat with me about how you can make some changes, particularly around addictive patterns, the hidden addictions like worry, like people pleasing, like procrastination, like stress. Yes, we can be addicted to stress. If you've got any issues with your gut or disordered eating or addictions that are more obvious, like gambling or alcohol, then reach out to me. Just have a chat and let's just see what potentially could be possible for you. Because one thing that I do know, and I've seen enough people in my life suffer, is that actually we don't have to make life as hard and as complicated as we do. Life and health can be actually much easier if you know what steps to take, in what order for you. And that's the bit where most of us, me included, need help from somebody who has been through what we are currently going through. So do reach out. Please don't feel shy or embarrassed, because chances are I've pretty much heard your story or something very similar before. And on that note, I'm going to say, I do wish you a happy new year. We only have one life as far as we know, and one body. Please do look after it. Decide to prioritize it in 2025, because it, whether you like it or not, is looking after you. So let's respect it. And I wish you all the best in the new year. Take care.